So, good to see you, beautiful audience. Hello, dear judges, and good afternoon, dear opposing team. As we all know, the topic of today's debate is vaccine pass shouldn't be imposed to the citizens. Let's be more specific and talk about this title. Vaccine pass is a card that limits your human rights and touches your own living life. To impose is to make someone accept the same opinion against his or her will. Citizens are us. We are the citizens. To have the vaccine pass, you need to inject the vaccine first. The vaccine shouldn't be an obligation. I have chosen to inject it because I feel like it's right, but for someone else, it's not. Why would we force them? They don't want to. Yesterday, a mom was cooking dinner for her child. Today, she cannot walk because of the vaccine. Was she forced, would you ask me? Yes, she was. Or because she needed that little card that lets her access buying bread, or that card that gives you the permission or not to practice your daily routines actions. Can you hear how absurd that is? To make someone accept the same idea against his or her will, just to have the access for their life. So let's summarize what you guys are defending. We must accept against our will the idea of a card that limits our own freedom. So you guys are opposing your own liberty? You guys are opposing your own rights? To be more precise, you guys are defending jail without bars. Do you want to be in the place of someone who has lost, for example, their vision because of the vaccine? Because they were obliged to inject it so they can have the vaccine pass. This someone is talking and striking and protesting, but no one is listening to them. Because the economy is doing great, or so the statistics, then where is their right? Can you give them their vision back, or do you even want to be in their place? So let's talk a little bit about equality. Do you really think that higher-ups use this vaccine pass, or do you even think that they have it? Do you even have any evidence of their life? We're the ones who's suffering, and you guys, instead of talking about your rights, all you do is just following the group as if they were in control of your own actions, as if they were in control of your own opinions and your own life. Well, let me tell you something, guys, that you're coming all the way here to defend this illogical idea of yours and to lie to yourselves and to the others. You're waiting for me to finish my speech so you can continue defending this vaccine pass should be imposed to the citizens. And thank you.
March 15 of 2020. What a memorable day. You were watching TV with your family when suddenly you received a notification on your phone. Your friends bombarded you with texts saying how happy they are because you're not going to school anymore. Fast forward 3 months later, you're still stuck at home, studying online and wishing to go back to pre-pandemic life. And the only reason you are back here on our beloved school stage is the efforts that the government had made during these past hectic months in order to get our lives back to normal, one of which is the COVID vaccine. Ladies and gentlemen, dear members of the jury, dear government, hello, and welcome back to an episode of COVID Vaccine on Trial. Vaccine pass shouldn't be imposed on citizens, a peculiar sentence that my team and I are here to prove the irrationality of. As the COVID-19 pandemic enters its next phase, fervent desires to go back to normalcy, coupled with the rollout of efficacious vaccines, have intensified discussions of vaccine passports, which definition I think you got wrong. They are certifications of vaccination that reduce public health restrictions for their bearers. Don't you miss going out in public without a suffocating mask or waiting in line in order to get your temperature taken? Well, according to the Israel Journal of Health Policy Research, As of the beginning of March 2021, Israelis who have received 2 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine are entitled to a Green Pass, a certificate that allows their holder to establish their immunization status and take part in various activities such as cultural and sports events, eating out at restaurants, hotel stays, swimming in public swimming pools. Anyways, you get the idea. Life is back to normal thanks to the pass. What I mean by that is that, quite differently from what you may think, the pass is not in any way here to take away your freedom. In fact, its main goal is to restore it, all while keeping you protected from the virus, just like we can see from the Israeli blueprint. The pass is also crucial for reopening the economy. For example, it is undeniable that in Morocco, the economical aspect that has suffered the most from the coronavirus outbreak is tourism. Places like Jam El Fna that were always crowded and full of life before are now totally empty most of the time. And merchants and traditional artisans have undergone huge losses and are now struggling to feed their families. How is that related to our topic, you may ask? Well, by implementing the vaccine pass, more people will be allowed to travel between cities, and limitations around airways in the near future will be reduced also thanks to the pass, meaning that both citizens and foreigners will be able to resume tourist activities, which will allow them to, which will give the kickstart our country is in need of to its economy in this field. So if you actually cared about your nation, which you should as a responsible citizen, you'd realize that the COVID vaccine pass will not only allow us to overcome the COVID situation, but it will also let us go back to pre-pandemic life in the best possible ways. Thank you.
Ladies, gentlemen, honorable jury, good afternoon. Monday, 18th of October, the government announced the possible use of a mandatory vaccine pass in the future, a sudden and shocking decision that only entered into application 3 days later on the 21st. The obligation to wear a mask does not infringe fundamental freedoms. It can guarantee our safety by keeping public spaces accessible with individual precautions. For the vaccine pass, however, much more problematic is the non-mandatory vaccine but recently required against COVID-19, which risks causing exclusions and inequalities among society nowadays, especially when it's the only way to benefit from public services. In other words, Morocco has moved towards a compulsory vaccination. Protests erupted across cities of Morocco the following days. Our bodies do not belong to you, as many protesters shouted. Yet the authorities' response was quite violent and inhuman in all ways. What these people did was legal, because they had the right to assemble and express their feelings freely. However, the Royal Gendarmerie and many police officers interfered by using shields to disperse the crowds. Some of them were even injured or arrested for nothing but their rights. If you don't know, in order to get your vaccine pass, you must receive the 3 doses successively. That means that you only get a permanent vaccine pass after your last one. Now, where did that lead us? If you don't, now you see almost 40% of Moroccan residents are still not vaccinated, according to the health minister. Many of them have witnessed deaths caused by the vaccine, long and lasting negative side effects, or they just have families they love, children they love, a life they love, and a dream they want to pursue. Others are still questioning if they would survive another dose, especially that third one that showed out of nowhere suddenly and was recently imposed as well. Trust me when I tell you that these people don't want to sacrifice all this happiness for a chance of their body to overcome the disease. Yes?
You said that there are negative side effects about the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
What is your source for that?
Well, according to a study that showed that the vaccine side effects are often linked to genetic factors. That means that nowadays most genes that interfere in immune responses are still currently unknown, and thus you'd never know if your body would react in such a way. A negative response could randomly occur. Anyways, vaccines sometimes lack efficiency, and it's a truth that we should all accept by now. In addition to that, they have mild side effects that fortunately disappear within a short period of time in most cases. Yes, because in others, like I just said, a negative response could occur, and that leads to severe complications influenced by genetics from the belonging to the person. It is like if your eyes are covered, then a random person shows up to you in the street and tells you to cross the road and trust them. Would you do that, opposants? Because I personally wouldn't hand over my life in between someone's hands. I just won't trust them. They won't guarantee me that my life will be safe with them. You might not consider others people's lives, but would you do that for your loved ones? I'm sure you would, because... Anyways, thank you.
Well, I object what the Prime Minister said, because I pretty much have to say, well, many people's got the vaccine pass and still no one out of them had the sanity problem. The few that you're talking about may have already been sick and had no clue. Plus, the Deputy Prime Minister didn't actually answer my teammate question. She asked about the source. You just generally answered that it was a study. You didn't give any precise source. Well, the vaccine pass shouldn't be imposed. What a beautiful sentence we have here, don't you think so? Well, maybe in an imaginary world or a fairy tale story that makes you have those sparkles in your eyes and those butterflies in your stomach. However, I'm so sorry to break it to you, we're not living in this dreamlike world you've been picturing yourself in. We are living in a society that puts education and health above anything else, whatever it takes. Dear audience, members of the government, let's all take a deep moment of reflection to think about this sentence. This sentence that these people on my right take pleasure in defending. This sentence that has completely no sense to me, but since I am a reasonable person, I try to put myself in their shoes and see things from their own perspective. If the vaccine pass shouldn't be imposed, it involves that people get to choose whether they want to get it or not. Therefore, there is going to be a percentage of people who aren't going to have it. In consequence, authorities won't let them access public places. And in my opinion, this new restriction is quite logical. Neither authorities nor you, dear opponent, are some kind of soothsayers who can guess whether people are vaccinated or not. Therefore, the only tool you could use to protect all of us, including you, dear government, is the vaccine pass. Well, right now, right here, I want all of you to imagine yourself in their world. A world where people with and without the vaccine pass get to live in the same public environment. Isn't it going to be unfair for those heads who actually bothered themselves and went through a whole procedure to get the pass in order to prove that they are no longer a danger of virus transmission, or at least not as much as they were before? And guess who is going to be the danger by then? Well, unless you want us to get back to that vicious virus sphere when we're just trying to get out of it, unless you want us to go for another quarantine and be stuck in our houses for another 3 months, unless you want people to stop working again, unless you want us students to stop... Yes?
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah?
Are you sure, have you heard that the authority does not oblige anymore the vaccine pass in some places, right? So, in your opinion, why did they cancel this obligation? Is it not a threat? Huh?
I didn't hear any information. What's your source, please?
So, you don't have any social media?
What's your source? I'm asking about your source. You don't have any source of your information?
It has been said in the news. We're not in a discussion. Can you?
Okay. My friend's going to answer you about that later. Unless you want us students to stop coming to school again, all of this because you believe the vaccine pass shouldn't be imposed on citizens. Well, my teammates and I think it has to be imposed, and it has no relation with any sort of freedom or whatever you're going to say. It is basically related to everyone's security and health, which comes before anything else. So what about you stop being selfish and start thinking about how much it is actually going to be beneficial for us to impose it? Otherwise, our society will never get back to how it was before, or just even close to it. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the jury, dear opposites, good afternoon. Vaccine pass shouldn't be imposed on the citizens. Here is why. So governments all over the world try to implement several measures to help the world return to pre-virus normality. And this includes the COVID-19 passport that is threatening human rights and posing serious long-term threats to the privacy and security of millions of people across the globe. People who don't have a vaccine pass will have their basic rights restricted. Such passports will be used to give people who are vaccinated the ability to do things that others cannot. There is a danger of stigmatizing individuals who have not a certification, and it may also penalize people who are already at a disadvantage because of certain inequalities. Also, the passports could encourage people who have not been vaccinated yet or have chosen not to be vaccinated to get a certification on the black market. So it encourages them to do a fraud just because they need this card to live their normal daily life. Moreover, they were lying to us when they have said that the vaccination is a choice and then forced the pass. It's a pure dictatorship. It's so obvious. Even if they have the right to take such decisions in a pandemic, they didn't take the right one concerning it. For example, vaccination centers are, after pass, 10 times fuller of people. A person who needs an urgent document has to wait from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. just to get that. Additionally to this, this obligation of vaccine pass affects the country's economy. By obliging the vaccine passport everywhere we go, restaurants, stores, park, they are sinking the country's economy and putting it to the bottom. Furthermore, let's get to the real question. Why do these people choose to not get vaccinated and so not to have a vaccine pass? The only answer for this question is that they don't really know where this vaccine comes from. It's still ambiguous and enigmatic, and no one can deny this. They don't know if it really works and protects them or not, especially with the variants that have been discovered recently. David Archard, the chair of the Nuffield Council on Bioethics, said, countries are in different stages of the vaccine rollout. And given concerns about the impact of existing variants on the ability of vaccines to offer a protection, it would be premature to introduce the passport system. So it's not sure that the vaccine is efficient. Therefore, they will refuse to inject an unknown substance into their body just to get that vaccine pass. After all this, I don't think someone still thinks that the obligation of vaccine pass, in other words, discrimination of our rights, could be something logical and right. Thank you.
Honorable members of the jury, my dear fellow citizens, good evening. It is a pleasure having you all reunited again. Today, my companions and I are willing to present one of the greatest emotions ever. So, let me take you for a fantastic but realistic ride. So without any further ado, let's get into it. First off, I would like to answer our dear Prime Minister. Morocco has actually cancelled the restrictions lately because we have achieved and we have attended the herd immunity because over 60.29 have actually got their vaccine and vaccine pass. Thank you. And also, for the dear members of government, we were here debating about if the vaccine pass should be imposed, not if the vaccine is good or bad to our health, knowing that it's no way and it's no close being bad to our health. Anyways, going back to what I was saying. A man once said that responsibility is accepting the fact that you are the cause and the solution of the matter. What a thrilling and marvelous quote, right, dear Eagles? Responsibility, such a perplexed, complicated, yet very simple and crystal clear term. That means being able to consciously make a wise decision and always assume and undertake the upshot of our actions. And that virtue right here, dear audience, is our schools. No, my apologies. Is the word entire population's apple of the eye. Then why you, dear members of government, refuse this idea? Let me remind you that few were the people who took that critical situation seriously back then in March 2020 and who looked before they leaped, while the vast majority was out there having fun, partying, living the life without giving a single care about the pandemic, or even better, not wearing a mask, clutching onto each other, and ignoring the fact that COVID was still roaming around. Therefore, creating the most propitious circumstances for this vile virus transmission and making the propagation, infection, and death cases go as high as Mount Everest top. We, ladies and gentlemen, with the sure, go ahead.
You know, for collective immunity, it would only be possible if 80% of people were vaccinated of the population on the national territory.
That.
In Morocco, only 60% are fully vaccinated and 40% are still not.
May I answer you? I said over 60% because there was not any more late statistics. These were kind of old because with each passing day, people are getting vaccinated. And thank you. Back to what I was saying. We, ladies and gentlemen, were the main reason behind this widespread infectious disease that pushed our dear country to adopt the obligatory vaccine as a solution. Then why act completely reckless, stubborn, and irresponsible? Why refuse to come to grips with it and assume the outturn of our behavior? Why cowering like a frightened child? Why running away from our liability? Oh yeah, fear of what may happen, taking cautions, you say. Oh wait, let me get that. Oh Lord, that was Jean Vedley, and guess what he said? Responsibility finds a way, and irresponsibility makes excuses. So how about we all drop the act, let that irresponsible behavior aside for once, and be mature and all agree on the fact that the vaccine pass should be imposed on everyone. That way, every single individual is set out there and getting his pre-COVID lifestyle back, and that lifestyle and system back. And that, dear audience, only herd immunity can grant by urging every loyal citizen to have their vaccine pass. And for your information, dear crowd, this is not me just debating to win, but doing my duty towards my country, as you all should do, and thank you.
Express yourself. Your voice matters. You have the right to say what you think, share information, and demand a better world. You also have the right to agree or disagree with those in power. Exercise and express these opinions in a peaceful protest. Exercising these rights without fear or unlawful interference is essential to live in an open and a fair society, one in which people can access justice and enjoy just their human rights. Yet governments around the world routinely imprison people, or worse, for speaking out, even though almost every country's constitution refers to the value of free speech. And in fact, you can find many examples of this in the real life. Just think of the story of Deng Zhang. At the end of August, police in China's Hunan province came to his home and took him by a car to hospital. Zhang said he was very clear that he didn't want to be immunized, but they held down his arms and legs and... Yes, my friend?
Well, first, I would like to say that no one said that you will not have freedom and you will not have your freedom to express yourself. Because let me remind you that in the Moroccan constitution, we say that every citizen have the right to freedom and to express his rights. But also, there is a chapter that says that in a critical situation and in an emergency situation, the government has every right to impose every law that he sees appropriate and adequate to chill his citizens from any bad and negative sides effects. Thank you.
I'm afraid, my friend, to tell you that I do not agree with you. I'm a human. I want to be human if I want to live in an open and fair society. I'm a human. That means I'm freedom. Thank you, my friend. But anyway, getting back to my story, the authorities held down his arms and legs and forcibly inject him. When I first heard about this, I was horrified for government officials to burst into people's homes and forcibly inject him. Like an extraordinary violation of person liberty. Nobody has a right to do this. We are reasonable creatures, so do not treat us as an animal. In 21st century, and in a world full of technological and developments, how come we treat humans like this? As the Commission on Human Security said, human security is to protect the vital core of all human lives in ways that enhance humans' freedoms and human development. Human security means protecting fundamental freedoms, freedom which are the essence of life. It means protecting people from critical and widespread threats and situations. According to the human security, it integrates three freedoms: freedoms from fear, freedoms from what, and a freedom from indignity. Freedom from fear refers to protecting individuals from threats directed at their security and physical integrity, and includes various forms of violence. Freedom from want refers to the protection of individuals so that might satisfy their basic needs. Freedom from indignity refers to the promotion of an improved quality of life. Welfare that permits people to make choices and seek opportunities for that empower them. Thank you.
You know that expression, slow and steady wins the race? Ever heard the story of the tortoise and the hare? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the tortoise, and I will beat virtually anybody, anytime, in any competition. Why? Not because I'm the best or the smartest. I'll win because of how much I believe in my position right now. I'll win because I'm not leaving until I completely convince you the very important part the vaccine pass is playing right now in our unique world. You know, I always had a bad image about vaccination. I don't know, just hearing vaccination was scaring the hell out of me. And here I am, on this amazing stage, trying to defend this scary spaghetti, a beautiful and meaningful name I chose to describe this terrifying thing at that time, and to make you understand, your audience, juries, and opponents, that without it, we cannot be free anymore. Yeah, because that's the thing that made me change my mind, freedom. Since I was little, I was always searching for my freedom. I was always making problems just because I'm not free. My mom once told me, "Ruqayya, you are so dramatic." She literally said to a person who just wants to be free in her acts that she is dramatic. Oh, my bad. However, you have to remember that everything that gives you freedom is right, and anything that destroys your freedom is wrong. And we all know what destroyed our freedom here, and we all know that there is an actual key to go back to our freedom as well. I'd really appreciate it if you answer me for this one. Aren't you tired of those rules? Tired of being hopeless? Aren't you tired of this life coronavirus had ended us to? Aren't you tired of this world of prison and want to go back to a real world of freedom? Well, I am, and I don't see a good reason why you defend such an irrational thing. Doesn't it seem weird being so stubborn and not enjoying their life just because of a vaccine pass? Did you know, because it seemed like you don't know, that actually it won't hurt anyone? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say it one more time. Yes?
Do you have any source that says what are the components of the vaccine, or any source that says that it won't touch us? Because from what I see that people are suffering because of it. Some people, I'm not generalizing.
And your sources?
My sources is that I give you the POI, so you should give me the sources actually.
Okay, I'll answer for that later. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say it one more time. Not being able to just go out and spend time with friends and enjoying ourselves. Is this exactly what you call freedom? Thank you.
All right, let's summarize what we have been saying since earlier. The use of the vaccine pass will be discriminatory against people who choose not to have the vaccine, or indeed those who can, such as pregnant women or people, etc., etc. The government should be trying to create a fair society. They should manage some of these issues because it's their job from the beginning. We have to make sure everybody has the same access to participate in life. What we need is to allow our community transmission. If we're able to get in a position where we can go back to our life without this vaccine pass, we have to consider all the options that are available rather than just push for this policy, which is going to create way much more inequality in our world. You have forgotten the word citizens with a big C. You have forgotten that you're one of them. Citizens have lost their trust. You have no proofs that will make us believe. All right.
One thing I think you may have wrong is that the vaccine is actually not here to harm you. And if you actually think that there are microchips in the vaccine, let me just remind you that you are holding a tracking device 24/7. Anyways, as we all know, this is definitely not the first health crisis the world has faced. In the 19th century, the world had witnessed one of its deadliest epidemics, one that each and every one of you, dear opponents, has been vaccinated against when you were barely 1 month old. I am obviously talking about tuberculosis, an infectious disease that also affects the lungs, and that had caused the death of 1 out of 7 people that had ever lived up until the 1800s. As you can already guess by now, the only way that we overcame it was through vaccination. Except right now, you guys are so concerned about your own free will that you often forget that your freedom ends right where mine begins. And by you not being vaccinated, you are representing a danger to my health and everyone else's around you. Thank you.
This vaccine pass needs to stop because for the unvaccinated people, it has become like the past quarantine, where they cannot access public places freely, nor they can benefit from public transports or private services as well. They're just thrown there, left there, with only one option left: get vaccinated or face the consequences. Their rights were completely restricted away from them, with only one alternative way to get them back. Isn't Morocco a democratic country? So why impose inequalities among its people? Why forbid them from the right to choose, to be free, and to have its own privacy? And just like that, it is easier to fool people than to convince them they were fooled. And it's exactly what my opposing team is trying to do. Thank you.
Well, to answer you, Prime Minister, to what you asked, my friend, I only have one question, is why would you condemn the majority of people because of a minority? But anyways, have you ever seen how a cat acts around her newborns? How protective and loving she is? The cat in this case is the government shielding its citizens from harm and keeping us from getting lost in the COVID rabbit hole. Trust between policymakers and the public alongside us as important as the newborn's trust to their mom. Well, for God's sake, aren't you tired of this life that the COVID has decided to lead for us? Don't you miss your pre-COVID life? And now that you finally have the opportunity, you're just rejecting it on some irrational grounds? Well, I do not get your point at all. Ladies and gentlemen, our government is doing its best to keep its citizens safe. Then instead of putting a spoke in their wheels, let's all be wise and think about what's best to our country.
Dear opposites, you say that a vaccine doesn't affect anyone, so how could you explain what has been going in August? People were vaccinated and died because of the COVID-19. I think that even if you know that we are saying is right, you're still being so selfish and fighting against our rights. What we want to say, my friends and I, is that the passport is penalizing us. It's taking our rights, our freedom, our privacy. We all know that democracy and equality should be present in every part of our life and between all the citizens. However, the vaccine doesn't guarantee this. On the contrary, it's a pure dictatorship and it's creating a differentiation between people so it will be a kind of enmity and hate on the community. So let's stop this and say, vaccine pass shouldn't be imposed on the citizens. Thank you.
Beloved spectators, upright jury, here we are meeting again. What a fate. Well, Prime Minister, check our director, check our teachers. They're all vaccinated and still they're safe and healthy. That's our sources. Anyways, according to our world data, over 60% of the population got vaccinated, and over 70% of the people support the idea of imposing the vaccine pass in order to protect their families and themselves first. So, why do them dirty? Why this injustice and hostility? Big pardon, but we live in a democrat world, or at least we want it to be, and only man's capacity for justice makes democracy possible. Then why are you trying to take that hope of having a better life from them? Didn't you all hate Hitler for his dictature? Then why act completely like him? Not even doctors saw problem in imposing the vaccine pass. Then why should you, dear opponents? Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we see just the people that are in front of our eyes. Many people suffered because of this, because of vaccine. Ladies and gentlemen, again, no one should be forced to be vaccinated. It is 100% human rights related to the right to privacy and the right to bodily integrity and our ability to be the masters of our bodies. Repeat, masters of our bodies. The consequences of this is our ability to determine our medical treatments. The point here is not to be punitive. It's just about keeping society safe. And thanks you again for letting me share with my other friends our opinion against this topic, against the pass vaccine. Thanks.
First of all, no one said that the vaccine doesn't have side effects, but anyways. We have been socialized to believe in fairy tales, endings, and novels and movies. We have lost sight of reality. Dear audience, I want you to wake up. This world won't change until we decide to change it. This world won't be saved until we change our thoughts. I alone cannot change it, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples. We can change one thought at a time, one child at a time, one family at a time, one community at a time, one city, one state, one country at a time. Nothing will change unless you change. Nothing will get better until you get better. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a true believer of this opportunity our government offered us. And if you're not a true believer, and you're like most of people. We, as a society, have been deceived. Thank you.